On your screen, you can see it right there. Our time, it's been about almost 2 hours since I believe the last vote was cast. We're going to get some clarification here from somebody who does know, but Vatican City, the papal conclave underway, the cardinals meeting there in the Sistine Chapel, and the decision here is a big one. Who will replace Pope Francis after his death? The conclave started earlier this morning. The process, to our understanding, will continue daily. Several votes possible each day, and a 2/3 majority is what is needed here. Secret ballots, they are burned after each vote, and then when a pope is selected, we will see, of course, the white smoke rise from the chimney atop the Sistine Chapel. No decision that day. Sounds like we'll see black smoke. And the last two conclaves, you might be saying, well, how long might this go? Well, the last two lasted 2 days before a pope was elected. So joining me now is Dr. Mary Healy, professor of scripture at Sacred Heart Major Seminary in Detroit, best-selling author, international speaker, one of the first 3 women ever to serve on the Pontifical Biblical Commission. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Healy.
You're welcome. Great to be with you, Amy.
Yeah, so last time we spoke with you, it was sort of right after Pope Francis had passed away, and we talked to you a little bit about this process coming up, and here we are. Can you just, first of all, kind of set the scene for us? Where are we in the timeline of the conclave at this moment?
Sure. Well, this morning at Rome time, the cardinals made a solemn procession into the Sistine Chapel actually it was this afternoon Rome time, 4:15 Rome time. They process into the Sistine Chapel, and there they listen to a meditation by Cardinal Raniero Cantalamessa, who is a well-beloved cardinal who was the preacher to the Pope for several decades, actually. And then Cardinal Cantalamessa himself had to leave because he is over the age of 80, so he's not eligible to vote. And the Master of Papal Ceremonies was the one remaining person. There's the famous injunction, everyone out, extra omnes. Everyone else has to leave except the cardinals who are under the age of 80 and therefore eligible to vote. And on their first day, they have only one ballot. So by now, in Rome time, they will have had that ballot, but presumably it would take a long time to count the votes. Each cardinal has to come to the front, and probably many people have seen the movie Conclave, which was remarkably well timed, coming out just a few months ago, and very accurate in most of the details regarding how the balloting takes place. But each cardinal goes up to the front and solemnly swears before God that he has written the name of the man that he believes is the one most worthy to be Pope. And then the ballots are counted by a panel of 3 cardinals, and only if there's a 2/3 majority can someone be elected Pope. So presumably it will not happen on the first ballot, and today there's only one ballot. So I will be completely shocked if we see white smoke today. I think the whole world would be shocked. As you said, the last couple of conclaves took a couple of days, but it's very likely that this conclave could take longer because there's a larger number of cardinals. There are 133 voting cardinals, and many of them did not know each other, had never met one another, or only are familiar personally with a few of the cardinals. So in the last week or so, as they have been meeting in Rome, they've been getting to know one another. But it takes time for ideas to come to the surface, and for people to get an idea of what qualities are really needed and who demonstrates those qualities. So tomorrow and in the succeeding days, there will be 4 ballots per day. And it's possible that by tomorrow or the day after, we will see the white smoke coming out of the chimney. Until then, whenever there's a ballot that does not reach a 2/3 majority, we'll see black smoke. And when we see the white smoke, we will know that the new pope has been elected. He will then be solemnly asked if he accepts this charge from the Lord. And assuming he does accept, he will go into a small room called the Room of Tears. And it's where he will put on the papal vestments, the white papal vestments. And it's called the Room of Tears, I think, because it's an overwhelming thought that you suddenly have direct responsibility for 1.3 billion Catholics, for their spiritual welfare, and really for the spiritual welfare of the whole world. And so I imagine it's incredibly humbling and overwhelming, maybe a frightening prospect, but at the same time a beautiful prospect to know that God has entrusted you with this task. And then that person will be brought out to the balcony at St. Peter's Basilica, and there will be the announcement, Habemus Papam, we have a pope. But again, that may not happen this week even. It may not be until next week.
Dr. Healy, are there, this might be kind of a strange question, but are there front runners or favorites? If you're reading online trying to kind of get to who might this be, do we put any stock into what people are saying about who it might be?
Well, there's a famous saying, he who enters the conclave a pope leaves a cardinal. In other words, it's so often not the person who is at the top of everybody's list of papabile, popeable men, but so often a surprise. That was the case with Pope Francis. He was not high on almost anybody's list. Similarly with Pope John Paul II, he was really a dark horse. With Pope Benedict, it was less so. He was one of the front runners. But in this case, I think there's a very good possibility that it will be somebody that we have not thought of, or at least who has not gained the greatest media attention.
Is there traditionally or historically, the next pope, are they a continuation of the predecessor, or can it just veer in any direction?
That's a very interesting question. And I think you'd find very divergent views on that. Certainly cardinals who have given interviews for the press recently have, many of them have emphasized the need to continue what Pope Francis has been doing. I think there are also many who would say we need a continuation of the legacy of Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict. The new Pope is free to take things in whatever direction he sees fit, and hopefully that will be as he's praying and discerning before God, what does the church need right now. But it's also important to note that the Pope has absolutely no authority to invent new doctrine or to change doctrine. I mean, that's standard Catholic teaching. All the Pope can do is interpret doctrine and authoritatively teach it for the present time, apply it to the issues and questions of the present time, but he has no capacity to create a new doctrine or reverse a doctrine of the church, although there are many who hope and expect that a pope will. Pope Francis raised those hopes in many quarters, and he did not change church teaching. So it's important to recognize there are actually pretty severe limitations on what the Pope can do.
It's interesting you say that, and if you don't mind, I'll ask you a quick follow-up to that, because I'm curious about the range of, so when you talk about, say, an extremely sort of more conservative Pope, and these are all subjective terms, right? So conservative Pope versus a more sort of progressive Pope, how wide is that range, do you think?
Yes, it's important to remember that those political labels, right, left, conservative, liberal, progressive, really never apply well when it comes to the church. Because anyone who is a true man or woman of the church is going to transcend those categories. And I think a really good example of that is Pope John Paul II, who many labeled as a conservative, but in many respects he would be regarded as a liberal regarding the social doctrine of the church, regarding care for the poor, the environment, etc. And similar with Pope Benedict. So those labels can be very misleading when it comes to Catholic doctrine and where people stand.
Yeah.
But that being said, certainly a pope in style, in emphasis, in direction, where he's leading people in the church, can diverge very, very widely from his predecessor if he feels that there's need to do so.
If you wouldn't mind, I would love it if you would just tell us again. When we spoke to you last time, we were really remembering the life and the legacy of Pope Francis. But for those who may not have a chance to hear that or know this, when I asked you if you'd ever met him, you had a wonderful story. Would you mind sharing that with us again?
Sure. It was, I think, the first time that I stayed in the Pope's house, what never had been the Pope's house before, but Pope Francis chose to live there, which is essentially in the Vatican Hotel called the Casa Santa Marta. And guests would stay there, including priests, bishops, cardinals, but also lay people if they had business in the Vatican. And the first time that I was staying there, I came down for a meal in the elevator. And when I got on the elevator, it was just myself and the cleaning lady. And it stopped at the next floor, and on walked the Pope. So there in the elevator was the Pope, the cleaning lady, and me. It's kind of a shocking situation.
Incredible. I can't imagine a moment you'll never forget. My goodness.
Right.
Incredible legacy. So it's just sort of a wait and see right now, Dr. Healy, and we really appreciate you coming on with us and walking us through, because we just never know when it's going to happen. So the last vote, or the single vote for today, it sounds like has been cast, and that's I think the timer that we're seeing there. And then starting tomorrow, there will be the 4. So as far as today goes, just to kind of check in with you to make sure I'm on the right track here, the final, or the only and final vote has been cast for the day, and we just will kind of wait and see until they sort of go through them and count them. Is that what we're waiting for right now?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, I have no idea how long it will take them to count the votes, but that's what they will be doing. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the Sistine Chapel right now. A lot of people would.
Right, and
but we'll
also,
have to wait.
Yeah, very, very interesting too is the you talked about the time that they had together prior to sort of being sequestered, and they're getting to know each other, and then there's the silence, right, that has to set in. And I mean, the consequences are pretty severe, I understand, if there's any sort of talking once the ballots are being cast. Is that right?
Very severe. Automatic excommunication. If any cardinal or any person divulges what went on during the conclave, it's an automatic excommunication. That being said, somehow the information has been leaked out regarding the voting in the previous conclaves. So presumably somebody did suffer that automatic excommunication, but without knowledge of who it was. It may not have been known publicly that they had incurred that penalty.
Well, it's fascinating whether you're Catholic or not Catholic, and just kind of looking in on the process. And of course, as you mentioned, Conclave, the movie, has just opened it up to so many people who are now so interested in this. And you thought the movie, just really quickly, was pretty spot on as far as the ballots go.
Yes, of course. I've never been in a conclave, so I can't say for sure. Right. But I did notice their great attention to detail. I know not every detail was accurate, because it just struck me that in the Casa Santa Marta, where the cardinals are staying, they showed electronic keys, card keys. But in reality, there are old-fashioned metal keys. Unless they've changed it just this past week, which may have happened because I know they beefed up the security.
Yeah. All right. Dr. Mary Healy, we really appreciate your insight, and I have you on my phone as sort of somebody hopefully I can reach out to when we do have some news here. We would love to have you back on to share your thoughts on this new Pope.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.